at JP Morgan, if not the largest investment bank in deal flow, one of the largest in the world, you are exposed to a lot of AI and companies trying to raise cash and M&A and opportunities. How do you see this as an opportunity, a real opportunity for investors, for companies into the AI world? And what do you see as more like a trend in the next 6 months in the AI universe?
Sure, so that's a lot. And first off, thank you very much. Thank you very much for having us. We're delighted to be here. So AI as an investment thesis has really exploded over the last 12 to 18 months. I think what's really been exciting, and we've seen announcement every single day, right? You have everything from the infrastructure layer, whether you're talking about chips themselves or large language models, all the way through to applications. And I don't necessarily think that investment is going to slow down by any stretch of imagination. However, I think it's going to become a little bit more focused and a little bit more disciplined, right? Because I think what we're seeing right now is a lot of companies have graduated from, okay, we have wonderful ideas and wonderful opportunities, but how do you actually start building business models that will make money over time? So I think on the infrastructure side, you're still going to see a lot of capital go into that sector. On the application side, I think the real question is, how do those businesses thrive, the early stage startups, versus some of the incumbent players? And specifically, you've got a lot of very large cap software companies who are out there who own the customer today. And I think the question for earlier stage companies is, how do you position yourself versus those large caps? And how do you own the customer over time in a seamless way? So
it's about the customer at the end of the day and how they can add value to a big enterprise, right? Like how a startup can add value to a big enterprise. That's what you're saying.
Exactly.
That's good. And as a follow-up question, I think for you, Kevin, how do you see, like at Ripcord, you are very involved in legal and compliance and with the law, right? Like and how AI is a big topic right now because there is not much of a legislation. Let's just call it that way because it's a new thing, right? And at Ripcord, at the same time, you guys are using that for data science and data analytics, and I'm sure that the world now is much easier for your people than it was 30, 40 years ago, and they were like, going to Excel sheets and doing all the data thing. How it has improved AI, how in fact, in reality, AI has helped Ripcord to crunch data?
Yeah, so to give you a little background on Ripcord is a robotic scanning operation, and we invented robots that can take apart bankers' boxes of documents, they can remove the staples, they can take out paper clips, etc., and then send paper documents through scanners. The original thesis was we would put Iron Mountain out of business by scanning all of Iron Mountain's, hundreds of billions of pages of documents. That evolved in the last 7 years to where the money is, which is extracting data from those documents. Extracting data from millions of pages of documents is a really, really boring job for a human. It was a really boring job to take staples out of documents. It's a really boring job to go through and try to correlate data across vast documents. So what we've done is we use artificial intelligence to analyze data and put out useful information. So I'll give you a real easy high-level example. Coca-Cola distributes Coke all across the country, right? They drop pallets of Coke off in 7-Elevens in Casper, Wyoming, for example. The scam, literally 5 years ago, was if Coca-Cola dropped off 2 cases of Coke, the 7-Eleven person, or I'm not saying it was 7-Eleven, but it could be anybody, would call and say, hey, we only got half a case.
Right.
And Coke would immediately, oh, we're sorry, and they'd send them another one. Well, that was causing like tens of millions of dollars in what you call shrink in the retail industry of loss, right? Well, with us being able to take all the invoices the exact same day that they're processed and do three-way correlation with artificial intelligence, we can verify in real time all of the orders and drop-offs for Coke across the country. And that's a job that would take humans hours and maybe weeks to do. And because this is happening daily, it was impossible. So you just take the loss for tens of millions of dollars. So we were able to save Coke, 8 figures by using artificial intelligence in the industry. So we've evolved using artificial just in the last 5 years, and this is only going to continue to evolve. So it's extremely exciting.
So that's a 5 years old thing. Before it was all human.
Yeah, before the thesis was we would just like de-paperize the world. Right.
That's amazing. And that's exactly what Christina said, right? You resolved the problem, and that's why it created value, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as a follow-up question for you in that sense, what about you are involved in legal, and you're a chief legal officer and compliance. How do you see this data going to language models? Because they are all stored in the cloud, right? We're going to talk about AWS in a bit. But how do you see the legislation going into that world? Like how to protect privacy data into those language models?
It's super important. I mean, I think what we're going to start to see on the legislation front, or at least in the compliance front, is anyone who is handling data is going to have a big liability exposure, right? So what we're going to see is, I think, evolutions not only on the legislative side, but particularly around insurance. Average data breach costs companies, I think, between $9 and $10 million, to rectify. So we're going to start to see legislation on requirements around, how you protect data and how you, how you're able to share it, et cetera. And that's going to create, new contracts, new layers of insurance, and new laws that companies will need to comply with.
And it happened in the internet industry, right? With user data accessing sites.
Absolutely.
So probably it's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And it needs to happen at a federal level, right? Because like California, they have their own version of Data Protection Act, and New York does. And so, we need a sort of united, consistent front on this so that, companies aren't moving to, Iowa, where I'm from originally, and just setting up shop and avoiding paying, millions of dollars in insurance, for example. Right, so we do need it at the federal level.
Great. JC, we're talking about data storage and how to handle this data. But let's talk about Amazon Web Services and the beautiful work you're doing there. And you work with Latin America, with the Latino world. And I'm sure AWS these days is kind of hard to think of a company that is not present to, I don't know how is the market share, but it's very present into probably everyone or most of companies, SMBs, large corporations out there. How do you see AWS actually helping the Latino community, the Latino business entrepreneur? Is there any recent case that caught your attention and it's like remarkable?
Super. No, thank you for the question. And let me probably start saying that Amazon has been working with AI for more than 20. So has been an early user. When you remember personalization in Amazon.com to buy something, those personalization engines were done with AI. And from that to the fulfillment centers that Amazon has with robotics that are semi-autonomous doing the fulfillment center activities, they are using AI. AWS in particular started 17 years ago using data. That was the first service that we have, storage, managed data, and we don't have AI without data. So that's the first thing that we always say in AWS. And data has been data management there from the beginning. So a lot of, as you said, it's a lot of time. We also say that there is not a compression algorithm for experience because it requires a lot of experience in data management, cloud, etc., to do amazing things. For Latinos, which is my scope in Latin America, I lead the Latin America team for technology in AWS. Of course, Latin America, everybody's Latino. The experiences that we have in Latin America with startups, many of them, I will tell you that 80% of the unicorns in LATAM, they run in AWS.
Well, 80% of unicorns in LATAM are, well, it's a big number.
It's a big number.
Google might not be so happy with that, right?
Well,
and Oracle, I guess. So,
yeah, so it's 80% of the unicorns today running in AWS. So you have companies like Kavak, companies like Nubank, companies like Rappi, iFood, all of them were startups at some point. So why that interesting result is because AWS has from the beginning thinking in the democratization of cloud infrastructure, which is being available for every type of customer, size, person, corporations, government. So it's democratization of that. That's why we have these cases like, I can go a little bit on Kavak. Kavak is the first unicorn in Mexico. What they did basically was to revolutionize the way to sell used cars in the market in Latin America. And they use a lot of technology, they use data, they use, of course, AWS, but the uses of AI to, for example, identify the used cars and recognize, how the pricing will be for a used cars based on pictures is using AI technology. So great example of how you can use technology and disrupt the market. That's the case of Kavak. Another one that I always like to mention is Nubank, is the first fintech, pure fintech in Latin America. They started with a question about how can I get quick credit cards versus the incumbents that are in Brazil. And they shift the market with an easy process, cloud native, using technology. And now Nubank is, as far as I know, the biggest fintech in Latin America at least. So those are a couple of examples, Caio, of AWS focusing on startups and helping them to grow and become unicorns.
Right. And it's really interesting because talking about startups, right, Marcos, you are very exposed to venture capital and you have access to deal flow, and I bet people are pitching you deals, if not daily, right? And how do you see it? And I understand that there is a lot of buzz of NFTs and the metaverse over the last 36 months, and then it faded, right? And some people will say that AI is kind of dead, right? I would disagree, but there's some opinions around that. How do you see the startup flow and deal flow coming to AI into the VC world?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I'm Marcos Gonzalez. I'm with Vamos Ventures. Just to give you the audience some background, we're a venture capital fund in Los Angeles investing in Latino entrepreneurs in the US. I want to answer that question, but before I get there, I just want to take JC's question first about what AI is doing for the Latino community in this country. And there are several trends that are converging here. One of them is certainly technology and AI. The other one is the fact that over the last 4 years, and certainly with the pandemic, it's really spurred on this trend of individuals becoming entrepreneurs.
Right.
And entrepreneurs growing their business. And this is really fueled by the Latino community. So this is super important because AI is applicable in two areas. One is enterprise, which is what we're talking about. The other one is individuals,
Right.
which is the area that I think is the most impactful for the Latino community in this country. We're seeing a lot of that. So
Can you give an example?
I'm
Like,
gonna transition over to this now. So we've seen companies now that have said, hey, we're gonna do a user agent. User agents are what you would use to use AI.
Right.
And so an example would be, and we've all probably seen this, is we're creating a user agent that will basically replicate you. It's a clone of you.
Oh.
And I don't mean a clone from a medical
Right.
in a sense.
Yes,
Although
it
that,
does your brain, your
although that will be
ideas.
possible.
That would be
soon.
amazing, right?
Yeah, we're working on that.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean a clone from a work standpoint. So we all could be answering emails right now, producing reports, doing research, reviewing deals,
Right.
whatever, if we had this user agent that was trained to do this. So we see plenty of deals that are trying to do this, but many of them are just absolute startups. So I think that despite the fact that I think the enterprise side, there's a lot of development and I think sophisticated thinking, in the early stage venture world, it's still a Wild West. And people are looking for exposure and people are speculating. In that sense,
Okay.
it is very much like NFTs and Internet of Things, et cetera, et cetera.
So people put like jargons, AI in the back, and they send over, and they hope to raise millions of dollars.
I'll tell you, that does happen.
I know.
Absolutely.
I can
That
definitely imagine.
absolutely happens. And, sometimes it's not exactly the case, other times it absolutely is the case.
But then connecting to what Christina said, right? They are actually helping, they're actually changing, transforming, like Nubank, like Kavak, and that's where you bet, right? That's when you can analyze. And I think that a human will never be replaced. To have the feeling, right? Of, is that a real thing? Because data can tell you many things, but your gut feeling can tell you more.
Yes and no, but that gut feeling is based on something.
Of
It's
course.
based on experience and data intake since the moment you're a baby.
Right.
And the more that you can train systems and algorithms and software, et cetera, to incorporate the similar experiences and be able to get to an essence of a moment that is approaching consciousness. And that's when you start to get to this line of, is it human or not?
Clearly, you're very bullish on AI. Is there any company you've seen like
Bullish is one thing. The other one is being realist about what's
Right.
going to happen.
Yeah, it's happening. But tell us about, since you have this exposure, tell us about a startup that you've seen recently that is doing that.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple.
Okay.
And one of them is in our portfolio. There's two actually. One of them's here. It's called Bodco.
Okay.
Bodco works, and this is an example of how you impact the Latino community and other underserved communities in this country. Bodco's a company in the health and wellness space. Work a lot with federally qualified health centers. That's the front lines of healthcare in this country for the underinsured and the non-insured. And if you can get folks to use AI to serve your clients, and you can see a 10x ROI, if not up to 50.
Right.
This is really important because you need to train everybody on your staff related to crises, drug use, other emergencies. And if it's after hours on the weekend, it's hard to man that. So AI is able to be much more than just a voice response unit, or much more than just a chatbot. It's actually a thoughtful thinking, automation. So this company is a great company. We have others.
Right.
I'll quickly say Trustable is another company. They're the policy side, keeping AI on the rails and being vigilant in terms of assessing deployment, development, and use of AI.
It's definitely an ocean of opportunities, right? AI is a broad term, but you mentioned something really interesting. Your company focuses on Latino entrepreneurs, and we are here in I read somewhere that this was the Davos of Latinos, and I'm sure it will be. It is already huge, right? There's nothing like in America, and I'm sure it will probably be much bigger than it is right now. And you should be super proud of this. But why Latino entrepreneurs? Like, why this is a business case for you?
Well, I know this is not the panel for that, but basically for us, probably like many of you here, it's if I have $1, I want to put it in a market that's young, high growth, and entrepreneurial, and consumes.
Excellent.
Long runway. Why would I not be investing in this sector? That's our point of view.
That's it. Let me ask a general question to everyone here, to the panel. You feel free to jump in. What do you think is an actual usage of AI that you personally use in your day-by-day as Latinos, and that you see other Latinos using? What is the main thing you're using right now in your house, on your life and education? It doesn't matter. Who wants to jump in with a real usage, right? Because we're talking about NFTs in the past, like, what do you mean NFTs? I bought one. It's different, right? So what is?
Well, I think one of the core use cases for all applications is productivity enhancements, and
Right.
that's anything from writing emails, doing research, synthesizing information. So I think I personally use that for a bunch of applications. Now, I think the interesting question, and this goes back to some of the companies that we talked about, is consumer versus enterprise applications, and especially for enterprises that operate like us in a highly regulated industry. There's still going to be a lot of work to be done and investment and thought to be done in terms of how do you apply some of these marvelous technologies into the enterprise itself, so it's kind of walled off and companies and regulators feel protected. But
So you
certainly,
use-
me personally, it's a
use-
massive productivity enhancement.
Okay. An example?
If I'm writing something
Right.
and I want to have it written better
Yes.
or more succinct, right? I'll take a first crack, but I'm always happy to have redrafts.
No, it's great that you say that, because if you think about it, you can read a book now in any language, right, through AI. So it's really helpful for education. Anybody has another example personally that you use?
I use
DC?
it.
Or go ahead, sorry.
I use it for health,
Health?
right? The third leading cause of death in America is, if you back out COVID in the last couple of years, is misdiagnosis,
Right.
right? I mean, think about that. That misdiagnosis is human error, right? With AI, you can get more accurate information about your health. I mean, I'm wearing an Oura ring. I don't know if other folks wear that, but it monitors their sleep, it monitors the oxygen in their blood, et cetera, et cetera. So then you can make more informed decisions about your health and when you sleep and the exercise you get, the steps, et cetera. And so that data I'm using on a daily basis just for my own health.
What about you, JC? You were going to say
No, I
something?
think I use AI in pretty much a lot of things that I do during the day. So since maps to come here to order or request a taxi to come to the event, I use one of the famous companies that provide that services in running in the cloud and use AI. But I would say personally, I use Alexa a lot
Okay.
in my house.
I'm sure.
And Alexa has been a great case of machine learning from the beginning, recognizing your natural language and having responses versus your what you have. And by the way, take the opportunity to say that we announced that it's going to have conversations soon. So it's going to use Gen AI to have a conversation with Alexa. So that is coming hopefully pretty soon. So imagine asking Alexa, how was the game this weekend? Which is different. So how was the game this weekend? And she can describe, well, the game was good, this person made a goal, and we lost, but we're gonna have an opportunity next game. So that will be the conversation with Alexa. Or, what do you recommend me to cook today? Okay, today is Wednesday, remember the kids are coming earlier, so cook this. That's what is coming with Alexa. So pretty interesting Gen AI conversations, which is, talking about Gen AI, and you mentioned it earlier, is really coming and disrupting a lot of things. But I think Gen AI personally is gonna, I recommend for all of us, everybody, especially Latinos, it's a huge opportunity to learn what AI and Gen AI is. So invest time to learn what it is. We have free courses actually, 7 free courses in internet, so you can take it and learn more about AI, but it's a big opportunity, tied to your earlier question, for Latinos.
So wrapping this up, and I think that's a takeaway here that we are all getting to a point, which is investing in Latinos is definitely an exciting market, right? And if you're a Latino entrepreneur here in this room, or if you're looking to invest in Latino companies, there is also big opportunity if you resolve a problem in the enterprise world, in the application world, and you can use Amazon, right, to train, and you can also be in compliance, right? But I'll ask a question, and then let's leave as the last one, because we are almost out of time. But we're very bullish on AI. We're talking a lot of things in AI. We are using AI in our day by day. But where do you see that AI might not be such a good idea? Like, how do you see this for each one of you? You think, like Elon Musk saying the other day that machines can kill us, right? But I'm not going to that point, because I think that's just extreme. But is there anything with AI that you don't think there is, that doesn't sound well for me?
I can start. So this is the way I think. We don't know, personally. And I make the analogy that if we are in a 10K race, we are just in the third step. So it's too long to see what is going to happen. We don't know about the competitors. We don't know. So when the internet started to become something popular in the 90s, nobody knew what it was going to be internet. So a lot of people say, well, people will do everything in internet. Well, today we pretty much do a lot of things in internet. So AI and Gen AI in particular can revolutionize a lot of things. And if I may close with how we see it in Amazon, we think always innovation and failure, they come together. So they are twins. So when you innovate, be prepared to fail. And I think we're gonna fail, to your point, with a lot of applications. But that will be the way to learn more and improve.
Right. Anybody else wanna take a jab?
Oh, I'm up again. Okay, excellent. Look, it's super fascinating, but I think data ultimately is the lifeblood of all of this, right? And depending on how the models are trained, the type of data that it has access to, both historically and on a real-time basis, that is going to influence how the overall system learns, right? And so I'm not a computer scientist, so I'm not going to go too far over my skis here, but clearly, depending on how it learns, just like depending on how all of us learned, that's going to influence at some point how it makes decisions and what it recommends. So I think that is something that is extraordinarily complicated. I agree, we're like at the infancy of figuring all of that stuff out, but that's a potential risk.
No, 100%. And I think we are all living into this transition, right? We're gonna break many things, we're gonna fix, we're gonna succeed like the internet industry. happened in the early 2000s, right? Like many companies, tech bubble and all that, dot-com bubble, right? But I think it's amazing, and I want to thank everyone for being here. It was a great conversation. If there's one thing we can all learn here is that there is a big opportunity with Latinos, there is a big opportunity with AI, and if somebody in this room can manage to find a solution to connect Latinos, entrepreneurs, and this big economy that I've just seen, Latitude announcing that with the research with Wells Fargo, that is one of the biggest GDPs on earth, that for sure will become a big business and the next big thing. So thank you everyone. Hope you enjoy your Friday. Thank you so much. And thanks for everybody.